Hello everyone, Freemantle here. Liberals believe that society has a moral obligation to satisfy the basic needs of everyone, and that in a right-minded society that would be taken care of before other needs or wants are taken care of. In other words, ideally, everybody should have bread before anybody has cake. That's one of the four key principles of welfare state liberalism. In today's video, which is part one of a two-parter, I want to talk about the morality we all know that lies behind the idea that basic needs should come first, and then about how the liberal builds on that familiar morality to create his basic needs principle that the basic needs of all should be met before other needs or desires. In part two, I talk about the justification he gives for redistributing wealth in order to do that. Years ago, I watched a filmed interview with J. Paul Getty, an oil man who was one of the world's richest people at the time. Asked why he never gave to charity, Getty may simply have shown himself to have been a good actor. But his reply sounded as if he'd once considered the matter seriously and had reached the conclusion he proceeded to give the interviewer. He was doing far more for people, Getty said, by providing a reliable source of energy for them than he'd be doing if he built him a daycare center, and obviously he was right about the relative values of oil and daycare centers. But who gets the moral credit? Somebody like Getty, or a city councilman who campaigns loudly and long to build a daycare center in a poor neighborhood? Most people think the city councilman deserves praise and Getty does not, because the councilman's action smacks of serving others rather than oneself. Getty's only making people's lives better. Even worse, Getty's more than likely being self-interested, trying to make a lot of money for himself. He's failing to put other people first. Conventional morality, I mean the morality most people think is right, has an ideal of altruism. Now, altruism is not benevolence. It's not simply treating someone kindly. It is not simply helping people. Altruism is hurting yourself in order to help others. When the liberal comes along to demand an overhaul of health care because too many people can't get the care they need, we've heard it all before in conventional morality. He seems to be simply putting conventional morality into practice here in this particular case of health care. Yeah, people ought to have the health care they need. It's right for them to have it. They have a right to have it. They're entitled to it. That's conventional morality speaking. Others will pay their taxes to support the healthcare system, and they'll just have to make do with the income they have left. That's conventional morality too. If men were saints, they would do this willingly and voluntarily, says conventional morality, and elevate unsatisfied need to the highest priority in society. Every day of a life would be driven in awareness of what need among one's fellow men demands of him. One would not shirk. The liberal would agree. But real people are self-centered. The liberal would agree. When the liberal attacks the distribution of wealth in society for being so lopsided as to be immoral, conventional morality backs him up. When the liberal directs his government to forcibly redistribute what will satisfy need, conventional morality eggs him on. And being conventional, the morality is, by definition, what most of us believe. At the same time, we're troubled about this. Hardly any of us live like Mother Teresa, and we don't want to, as evidenced by the fact that we don't. Nothing prevents most of us from cashing out and finding our own Calcutta, as Mother Teresa once advised a young correspondent. We don't live that way, and we don't want to live that way, but we believe we ought to want to live that way. We hear about how wonderful it is to give. We hear it constantly. And we think of giving to people who mean enough to us. Our kids or sweethearts say, people to whom we want to give. We think of giving what we want, when we want. And all the while, we know that isn't what more blessed to give means. When we give as we really ought to, the needy person is in control. We give as he needs, not just as we please. If each of us does his neighbor's laundry, eventually I get mine done too. I could go along for that reason with the altruism of everybody doing somebody else's laundry, and that'd be consistent with the letter of altruism, yes, but not with its spirit. The spirit is that I do your laundry because I want to serve you. Our altruistic duties to help other people are not the happiest thoughts for most of us ruminating seriously on our moral account with them. We fall very far short, which is why conventional morality has outsized praise for people who can find their fulfillment in helping other people. For the rest of us, there's a guilty feeling when we see the man at his card table with his authorization from City Hall, his help the homeless sign, his collection jar, and his beseeching look. We make an excuse. We tell ourselves a favorite aphorism. The homeless need help because Republicans are in power. The homeless need help because Democrats are in power. I work hard and my kids need the money. Why don't they go to the welfare department? What do we have it for? We walk away and feel ever so slightly guilty, but at least we walk away. Not so when Jim solicits us at the office for a Christmas toy drive. We're not about to have people we work with every day see us stand up against helping the needy. How much do you want, Jim? And now we make an excuse for giving. We imagine a wan child's beaming smile, the narrowness of the little person's life, his parents' hopelessness, knowing all the while that these pictures before our mind's eye are obscuring the moral intimidation and anger we feel. We talk very little about this, and only where we're very secure in the other person's good regard. This is not because so many people laugh off moral dilemmas as the worries of goody two-shoes and we don't want to look prissy. We keep quiet because what's at stake is our hypocrisy and we know it. Whether other people think we're hypocrites may be a matter of utter indifference, but there's nothing small about being a hypocrite in your own eyes. It is, in fact, so dangerous that a person can't tolerate it for long. Its danger lies in the fact that values are part of our navigational kit in life, for taking steps as well as treks, that inconsistent values yield inconsistent directions, and achieving our goals, whatever they are, requires consistent application of consistent values. Point for the moment, however, is this. We feel a terrible, utterly serious urgency to correct our hypocrisy in our own eyes about helping other people. Conventional morality has a way out, and the liberal capitalizes on it. First, conventional morality hints that we don't have to take it all that seriously. I had the pleasure of interviewing the well-known entertainer Steve Allen twice. The second time we spent the hour talking about religion. He wrote 2 books on the Bible. And I think it was in that conversation that he became the only thinker I've come across who has made this point about conventional morality explicitly. It exaggerates, he said. Exaggerates, that was his word. It hints that we don't really have to go off and live like Mother Teresa. That's just the ideal. Then second, it holds out to us a choice of 2 ways of living. It's a 2-tiered morality. The higher tier is for saintly people like Mother Teresa. That's where you live the finest human life. But you don't have to live there in order to be a good person. You get moral extra credit if you do, but no demerits if you don't. The lower tier is for the good but morally unexceptional man. This is the person who says, look, I'm just an average Joe. I pay my bills, I try to be a good parent, I've always voted for the Democrat, I give my money to the Salvation Army every Christmas. I'm not trying to be Mother Teresa. What's wrong with that? Nothing. It's not saintly, but you don't have to be a saint to be a decent person. The problem with this way out of our altruistic duties is that we already know it, and we still have our guilty feelings and our fear about colliding with our duty to serve others. How much money Joe or any of us ought to give it to charity at Christmas is vague, but the ideal of selfless service we should live by is loud and clear. Everything conventional morality prescribes is vague compared to its ideal of selfless service. In this moral fog, the liberal appears. He has an offer. We can use the democratic political process and the welfare state government to determine exactly what we owe others, and we can let the process fulfill those obligations for us and send us a bill. We pay it, and we will have discharged our obligations to help others. That's the liberals' offer. Well, the political process, any process, requires input. And the liberal has a long list of things he believes we owe others. It is titled Basic Needs. This is a rubbery term. It just means unsatisfied needs that are at the top of the liberals' list at the moment. As they are satisfied, lower-ranked needs move up to take their places. Anything the liberal could conceivably call a need under some circumstances, and that somebody else who isn't needy at the moment could satisfy, could wind up near the top of the list, a need that is basic. Liberals are not always agreed among themselves about what's on the list or on the priorities of the items, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations is a pretty indicative list. The Declaration consists of a preamble and 30 articles. The first 21 read for the most part like paraphrases of elements of our Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. The next 6, Articles 20 through 27, include, among other economic, social, and cultural rights, as they're called, rights to work, protection against unemployment, remuneration ensuring, quote, an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection, unquote, the right to what the Declaration calls Social Security, not the same as the U.S. government program with the same name, a right to rest, leisure, periodic holidays with pay, food, housing, medical care, security, the Declaration doesn't say what that is, education, a right to free education at the elementary level, and a right to enjoy the arts. And in Article 28, a person has the right to, quote, a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized, unquote. We're all born equal in these rights, says the UN Declaration in Article 1. All liberals would concur in principle, even when they differ about what the specific rights are. We are equal in rights. That is, we have a right to equality with others in their right to good health or whatever. We have the right to be equal with others in what will satisfy the rights, appropriate medical care or whatever. We have the right to be equal to others, a right to what the liberal calls social equality. Reinforced by conventional morality, and out of the liberals' view of man, a decent society, and the proper politics, the liberal condenses 2 measures of being morally deserving: need and equality. They work together. Our basic needs are to be satisfied to the extent that we're all equal in satisfying them. And we're all to be equal to the extent that the basic needs of all are satisfied. And these 2 measures of being deserving make up the basic needs principle. We need to be clear about it if we're going to take the measure of liberalism, so it's the takeaway for today's video. The liberals' basic needs principle says, the basic needs of any person are to be satisfied before any other needs or desires of any person are satisfied. All should have bread before anybody has cake. As in some other videos in this series, I recommend Ayn Rand on altruism, and now I will add to that. I recommend the presentation in her novels of what a person really, objectively, needs in life. Thank you for listening.